Want to welcome everyone tonight. If you don't like Texas weather, wait a couple of hours. It may change. My name is Larry Rogers. I'm the chairman of the board of the Montgomery County Tea Party PAC. I'd like to introduce our board of directors. Bob Bagley, the president. Vice president is John Wirtz. He's not here tonight. He is overworked and underpaid, he said. Oh, maybe I got that backwards. He's underworked and underpaid. And Kenneth Ernst over here, he's our treasurer. And his lovely wife is not on the board, supposedly. I'm sure that he gets some. I'm sure that he gets some advice from his lovely wife. She is behind the scenes and she does a lot of work for us that she rarely gets credit for. And I want to thank you, Stacy, for everything that you do for our PAC. Okay. Kendra Yamaguchi, she's on the board. Where's Lana? Lana's right there. Lana's folks with us. Debbie, what's Debbie's last name? She changed it many times and I don't remember. Hawk. Debbie Hawk. She's not here tonight, but anyway. Welcome everyone again. Thank you so much for being here. We got a great speaker tonight. And if you haven't noticed, there's a getting ready to be an election. Oh, wow. All right. So if you haven't got involved, get involved. You're never too young. You're never too old. I'm true example of never too old. 87. And there's some others that are even older than I am that are here. Right? All right. Bob?
Hey guys, let's stand and pray together. Lord God, we thank you for your kindness, that you'd allow us to come together, to call on your name, to express our gratitude and thanks, praise, adoration. God, that you'd call us into a relationship with you. God, that you'd send your son to die on a cross for our sins. We thank you for your goodness. And we pray you'd flourish this nation once again with your goodness and kindness, and that our hearts would turn back to you. We'd be a people that love you, obey you, and walk according to your precepts. God, we pray for those that wear the uniform, Lord Jesus, that are overseas right now. God, we pray that you'd keep them safe. Those that are in harm's way, God, go before them. We pray for our elected officials. We pray for our president, God, that you give wisdom, discernment, and favor. And that you just go before us tonight. You'd bless our words in the way that we speak to one another, that you draw us together for a common purpose, that we would see our nation come back to you and experience a period, Lord Jesus, of jubilee, as your word would put it. God, we bless you now and thank you in Jesus' name for all these things. And all God's children said, amen.
Took my retainer off today, so I'm not going to fumble it again. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, indivisible.
Okay, whose car alarm's going off? I'd like to thank y'all for coming tonight. Evidently, there's a game on that some people are staying home for, but our nation's in a crisis right now. If you haven't seen that, you haven't seen what was happening in the church in Minneapolis. If we're not careful, it's coming to a town near us. If you remember back in the time of George Floyd, we did have a little one in Houston where they burnt buildings and police cars and things. I talked to my wife today and I said, honey, I said, I really need to get a hold of a bunch of biker friends that I used to ride with, and we need to take a trip to Minneapolis. Then I thought about it and I said, you know what? No, I need to get a hold of biker veteran friends that know what to do to go there. Something's got to change. We've got a great president. He's got a good staff, but we have still a corrupt judicial system that allows this stuff to take place. That should have never happened in a church. I don't care who you are. You don't have the authority or the right to go into a church and claim the First Amendment to be able to protest. I would ask each of you to have a conversation with your pastor and ask him if something happens. Hold on a second. Oh, got the wrong one. Sorry, I'll let them take care of it. Ask your pastor, what will we do if something like that happens in our church? Men, I would ask you, what will you do if something like that happens in your church? Will you stand up? Will you block those people from bringing fear to your family, to your wives, to your children? Or you let them just continue on like they're doing? If we don't take a stand, nobody else is going to do it for us. I know that they're going, they're heading to Minneapolis, and some are already there to make an arrest of that idiot news guy, and I can't remember his name, Don Lemon. And it's about time. They had talked about arresting him under the FACE Act, which was put together by Biden. But there's one better, and that's they're arresting him underneath the KKK, and that's much worse. This stuff has got to stop in our nation, and this is only one issue that's taking place. The other issue that's even bigger is what Islam is doing in our state and in our nation. And it's up to us to stop this stuff from going on. And it's up to us to be involved. And it's up to you to be out there voting. And more than that, we need help at the polls, passing out voter guides. And if you haven't gotten your voter guide yet, there's some on the table over here. People need to know who and what, who's running and what they're about. We have, I talked about it during our last meeting. There's a leg underneath there. There you go. We had over 2,000 man hours vetting the candidates that were out there. We're not perfect, but we weren't working with perfect candidates either. And if you find one, let me know, because the last perfect man that was standing was Jesus Christ. And he's not coming back for a while. And when he does, he's going to be in a white outfit with blood, with a sword in his hand. We have a battle in Montgomery County between good and evil, and a disruption, and people trying to take down not only the Tea Party, but the Republican Party. And we can't have the infighting and continue to make the difference that we have in Montgomery County. Montgomery County is the reddest county in the state of Texas for the voting size that we are. And we have to continue on. You know, there's been candidates that have failed to come to the Tea Party because of pressure from other people. And that's a shame, because you don't get to hear from them. We've got a few good candidates that are here tonight, and one of them is going to be speaking. And if he doesn't knock your socks off, then you're not wearing any, like I'm not. So we've had a good year, a good start so far. Elections are next month, early voting. Hopefully this is the last year that we ever have early voting, that President Trump will get his thing put through, and we'll have voting on election day. There's too many, primaries will still be the same way, one election day. And so the credibility in our justice system is bad, but so is in our voting system. And we need your help to stay focused and help us to fight. So I'm going to quit. Aaron, would you like to come up and speak for about 2 hours?
Never give a lawyer.
Yeah, for those who don't know me so well, that's really a temptation sometimes. I mean, Gwen's like, yeah, absolutely. I remember how you went longer than 5 minutes on Saturday night at my gala. So don't get. Hey, nobody came on. No, the sign is, we've been doing this for a long time. When you're speaking as a candidate, you have to wait for somebody to creep into your periphery to tell you that you're done. And if I don't see somebody in the periphery, I'm still going to keep going. You know what I mean? So anyway, well, I'm really, really happy to be in Montgomery County. I've been in Montgomery County already in the new year in January. This is my third grassroots visit to Montgomery County. And I'll be here again one more time before the end of the month. And then I'm scheduled right now for 3 more visits in the month of February. That could add up. And the reason is exactly like you said. Montgomery County is the largest red state county in the state. This county went 72% for Trump in 2024. Yes. Now, you might find a handful of counties around the state that had a higher percentage than that. But the thing is that the population is not there, right? Montgomery County punches and hits harder red than any other county. Now, Tarrant County used to say that they could do that, but it's been changing over time, like a lot of our urban centers. So really, it's Montgomery County that's happening. That's where it's all at. But I'm particularly proud to be here with the Montgomery County Tea Party, because I'm proud to say that I have been endorsed by this fine outfit. So thank you very much for that. And look, as a candidate, there are, especially statewide, right, there are so many endorsing organizations and individuals and slates and all of these things. And you really learn, and I knew this when I did Paxton statewide, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about my bio. We'll get into it in a minute. But when I did Ken Paxton statewide reelect in 22 and then Cruz's in 24, you get to know all the different geographic regions and the who's who and what slates and blah, 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 and all this stuff. And you come to realize, and especially as a candidate, that the overwhelming majority of this endorsement game is pay to play. That's what it is. 90% of these things. You get a recommendation from somebody, follow the money. You see one candidate or a sitting legislator has endorsed another candidate, just pull up the Texas Ethics Commission paperwork and you'll see that they got a check from the candidate. So of course they're going to get the endorsement. Now, what I love about the Montgomery County Tea Party is having gone through the process and also witnessed and participated in dozens of other selection processes, right? You guys actually put in the work. I mean, Bob wasn't kidding about it was by far the most detailed questionnaire, the longest interview, the best questions, follow-on questions. Then the board had to vote on it at a very high threshold. Then the membership had to ratify at a certain high threshold. Do you know that most of these organizations around the state do not engage in anything even close to that level of due diligence? But this is why the credibility of the Montgomery County Tea Party endorsement has maintained, where everybody else just kind of brushes it off because you know it's pay for play or it's some cashed-in political favor or whatever, right? But I'm proud not only because it's an endorsement that you can get excited about that I can rely on, but it's also because of just the political, philosophical, jurisprudential alignment that I have with your core values. And I hope that you see that as we talk. And so I want to tell you a little bit about this race. And then I want to spend as much time as you'll give us for Q&A. And we can talk about current events. We can talk about the race. We can talk about AG. We can talk about a bunch of different things. But I will tell you this, maybe before I get into my remarks, things are on the practical side. You have endorsed a campaign that is going to win this thing, okay? Now, our financial paperwork, it all went out for all the state candidates. It went out on Friday. Everybody's had to submit their stuff by Thursday night, midnight. And then guys like me and our staffs and all the politicos and all the journalists and everything, they all stay up real late because they're reading everybody else's reports, right? Now, I'm proud to say a couple things. Number one, as an AG candidate, I outraised all of my opponents. I raised more money than anyone else in this race. I outraised one of my candidates by an order of magnitude times 4 times more money. I outraised another one of my candidates 3 times as much. I outraised my third and final opponent nearly 2 times as much. But on top of just the actual dollars raised, and by the way, I came from a middle-class family. I've had a great career, but I'm not independently wealthy, so I did not inject, my dad's money into anything. It's just money raised from $0 to where I raised nearly $4 million in six months. That dollar amount, by the way, is not just record-breaking. It is, in fact, record-setting. No one in modern Texas politics, having never been elected to anything, having not rolled over any prior holdings in a campaign account, having no other PACs that are backing them or anything, gone from $0 to $4 million in 6 months. It's never happened before. It's not just record-breaking, it is record-setting in modern Texas politics. Now, the other statistic that I'm particularly proud of, it's not just the cash, the money, although that's really important. I raised from more than double the number of donors than my 3 opponents combined. So if you add up the number of individual donors from my 3 opponents, opponent 1 plus opponent 2 plus opponent 3, and you double that number, I have more than that number of donors that have supported this campaign. Now, yes, that's huge. Why? Because I think People are taking this race very seriously. We haven't had to choose an AG in over a decade, and they're critically, especially thoughtful groups like this, you're critically re-examining, like, what is it that the AG does exactly? And you're going back to the Constitution. You're asking yourself, what does this do? And you're evaluating the criteria of fitness for this office based upon what the job actually does. And when you evaluate the job and you put it side by side with my credentials for this job, it becomes, at least this is my very biased opinion, that the matchup is perfect. You're like, of course it needs to be this guy, right? And so the money, the number of donors, the participants, small dollar, big dollar, everything, it's all coming together. Why do I say this? It's not just to brag, although it is partially to brag a little bit, okay? But what I want the Montgomery County Tea Party to know is that you have backed a winner. You've backed the best candidate, but you also backed the guy that's got what it takes to win. And I think that that's really important too. So yes. So the reason why I'm running is because I believe that we are in a battle for the soul of our state and our nation. And I know from long fought personal experience that the primary arena in which we are fighting the dark forces of the left is the justice system. This is something that President Trump understood well. It's why he campaigned on restoring law and order, on restoring integrity, confidence, transparency, fairness to an utterly broken justice system. And once he got elected, he began his search for lawyers that he could begin populating his administration with, for those who were equipped and battle tested to lead and win the most important legal battles that are on the horizon. And I started getting the call to come down to West Palm Beach, and I ultimately was nominated to head up the Office of Legal Policy at the Justice Department. And when President Trump put out a nominating statement about me in December of 2024, he said, Aaron Reitz is a true MAGA attorney and a warrior for the Constitution. Now, on the one hand, that's an accurate shorthand description of what our next Attorney General ought to be. But there is a reason why he said that about me. There was substance to his description that Aaron Reitz is a true MAGA attorney and a warrior for the Constitution. Well, what was that background? What led him to look at my resume, look at the people that were recommending me, interviewing me, and saying, yep, this is my guy. And after he named just the Attorney General of the United States and the Deputy Attorney General of the United States, after those two were filled, he said, I want Aaron Reitz, a senior exec at DOJ. What is that background? What is that background? It's somebody who started his career as an Aggie. We got any Aggies in the room? All right, we got a couple. Started the career as a fighting Texas Aggie and commissioned as an officer in the United States Marine Corps. I spent 5 years on active Iraq. We got a Marine in here or just a lover of the Marines? We're all lovers of the Marines, aren't we? Yeah, we all love the Marines. There's one I didn't see. The light's bright. Maybe there's a Marine in the room. But I started my career before I was even a lawyer as an active duty officer in the Marine Corps. I went to Afghanistan. I deployed to the Northern Helmand Province, came back, met my son who was born while I was away. He was five months old when I met him when I came home. And I went to law school after my 5 years on active duty, got out as a captain. I'm still in the reserve as a major. I only have to drill quarterly in case you guys are wondering why I don't shave my the hair. My hair takes care of itself. The haircut is not that big of a deal, but I do have to shave my face occasionally. And went to law school, and even as a law student, was leading nationally recognized conservative legal organizations. After law school, I clerked for the now Chief Justice Jimmy Blacklock on the Texas Supreme Court. I then spent several years in private practice before becoming Attorney General Paxton's deputy. And during those 3 years, we had all kinds of battles together. And Paxton and I became blood brothers because we were in the trenches. I joined him right before the coup happened. And I'll tell you what, my three opponents were all either politically or financially backing that coup. You say, Aaron, that's a bit of an exaggeration. No, it's not. You want the receipts? Wait for Q&A. I'll get into it. Ask your question and I'll answer it, okay? All three of my opponents were behind that. And my job was to serve not just as his deputy, but as his offensive coordinator. So Paxton was our head coach. I was the offensive coordinator. The first thing that we did together within a month of my joining the AG's office was file what is now known as Texas v. Pennsylvania. That's the U.S. Supreme Court challenge that we filed to fight the stolen November 2020 election. 2 days after we filed that thing in December of 2020, we were in the Oval Office talking with the president and his team about next steps. It was an incredible ride. We did everything that we could. When all these other Republicans were squishing or on the sidelines or just waiting, seeing where the wind was blowing, because I don't want to be a part of this, Paxton and I stood up and filed that thing. We did everything we could between November of 2020, when the election was stolen, to January 20th of 2021, when auto-pen Joe Biden got sworn in. And when there were no other options, he has moved into the White House, my job became crystal clear. And it was to sue the ever-living hell out of the corrupt Biden administration. And we did it with tremendous success. I'm proud to say that I sued the 46th president 46 times, and I won 85% of those lawsuits. But it wasn't just going to war against the Biden administration. We went to war against all of the friends and allies and the networks of the left. I sued big pharma, big tech, big blue cities and counties, school districts, colleges, public officials, nonprofits, corporate entities. You name it. If you were an enemy of our constitutional values, our Christian values, the rule of law, justice rightly understood, it was my job as Paxton's offensive coordinator to hunt you down, sue you into oblivion. If I couldn't sue you, I'd investigate you into oblivion and then appeal you all the way up to the Texas or U.S. Supreme Court until you either cried uncle or a judge forced you to comply with the Constitution. And we had a blast. I was a happy warrior. I loved doing that stuff. Did it for 3 years before becoming Senator Ted Cruz's chief of staff. I did that for 2, and primarily my main weapon with Cruz was the Senate Judiciary Committee, where we did everything that we could to blast and torpedo Biden's radical left-wing judicial nominees. And if we couldn't get them punted from the process, we at least covered them in so much tar and feather that by the time they assumed the bench, we knew that all of their decisions after that would be illegitimate. And then I started getting the call down to West Palm Beach. Now, after I got nominated, I had to go through Senate confirmation. And went through that whole rigmarole. You guys have seen all the bright lights and stuff on camera where you're sitting there, and it's an opportunity basically for Democrats to try to nail your scalp to the wall. That's all it is. It's a hazing ritual. There's nothing more to it, but you got to go through it. If you want to serve in the position, you got to go through it, right? Now, I am very proud to say that I did get confirmed by the U.S. Senate with exactly 0 Democrat votes. Exactly 0. And in fact, I don't think I'd be running for, I may be running for AG, but I'd certainly be too embarrassed to stand in front of you. I certainly would not have earned the Montgomery County Tea Party endorsement, I don't think, had a single Democrat voted for me, because I would have thought to myself, what exactly did I do in my past to make a lib vote yes on me? I mean, that would have been embarrassing. Could you imagine a Democrat voting yes on you? It's humiliating. But so offensive was my confirmation to this senior post at DOJ that Senator Dick Durbin, the senior Democrat on the Senate Judiciary Committee from Illinois, he put out a full-blown press release about me in which he said, Aaron Reitz is a danger to democracy and a menace to the rule of law. Which out of the mouth of a Democrat, I'm like, yeah, you're darn right that I am. I know exactly what you mean by that. That's the kind of threat that I pose to them at the national level. Now, it's my opinion. And then look, I went to DOJ, and my job as the head of the Office of Legal Policy was to bring to life all of the executive orders coming from the president that had to do with the Justice Department or were related to some law and order priority that he campaigned on. So we would get an executive order. It would reference in some way the Justice Department or United States attorneys or judges or the judicial system in some way. My job as the head of the Office of Legal Policy was to take that executive order and turn it into a Justice Department-wide blueprint or plan of action or set of directives that either I or the Attorney General herself would put her signature on. And so all of the major victories that we saw in that first 100 days that were justice related, things like making it intolerable for libs to even be employed at the DOJ, shutting down all of the weaponized investigations and litigation that were used against the oil and gas industry, against prayer warriors standing in front of abortion clinics, against Second Amendment enthusiasts. We scrapped all of that stuff. All of those major first 100 days, sort of spring season, major policy level adjustments, those moves were housed in my office as the head of legal policy. Now, in the middle of all that, Paxton announced for AG. And I took a moment to think about it. And I'll be honest with you, I kept it to myself for maybe 3 or 4 days. And I kept waking up thinking about it. I mean, it's like, look, Paxton, I just got here. You have to be out of here. For those who have not spent time in DC or who don't sort of follow Capitol Hill stuff, like leaving a Senate confirmed job is kind of crazy. Once you're confirmed by the Senate, you're a made man. That's it. You really can't be touched. You serve at the pleasure of the president, and only he can get rid of you. But in the back of my mind, I knew, just privately at first, and then obviously I shared it, but privately, I said, Paxton's leaving. I've heard the list of a dozen or so names of people that are thinking about running. But if we transition to somebody who's not ready for this job, our state, and in fact, not just the state, because of the national impact that this job has over truly American law and order and jurisprudence, Texas and the nation will be extremely disserved. And so, look, I don't know what I'm going to do, but let me go talk to Attorney General Bondi. And so one of my first things after I sat on this, I prayed about it, I didn't get clarity on it. I said, okay, I'm going to see if I can visit with the AG. So I text her and I say, hey, can we talk about this? And or do you have 15 minutes to talk? She says, yeah, come by the office. So I come up by the office. And by the way, we're close, but you don't just go and gab with the Attorney General of the United States. You don't just go kind of, hey, can you shoot the breeze for 30 minutes or so? No, you got 10 minutes. Doesn't matter how high ranking I was. You get 10 minutes and you better spit it out. So I walked in with all the humility in the world, hoping in many ways that she would say, no, shut up, go back to your office, you've got work to do. That's kind of what I wanted to happen, because it would bring that closure, you know what I mean? Sometimes God closes a door, and at least you get closure on it. You can move on. That's true in business, relationships, everything, right? It's no. Sometimes it's when the doors keep opening, right, that you think, okay, am I still on the right path? So I present the issue to Attorney General Bondi, and I say, ma'am, as you may have seen a few days ago, Attorney General Paxton announced that he'd be running for the Senate. And that means that the AG spot is open. And, I just wanted to kind of get your advice on and she sort of interrupted me and said, and you're thinking about running? I say, well, ma'am, yes, kind of. But like, if you want to say no, I'll say, yes, ma'am. And I'll go back to my office. Like, it's not a problem. I don't have my heart set on this. And she says, no, you have to do it. You have to do it. I was Florida's AG. I love being the U.S. AG. But when I was a red state AG, it was one of the best jobs I ever had. And when she was Florida's AG, she worked with Ken as a Texas AG. And she said, you got to do this. Look, we would hate to have you go, but if that position gets screwed up, who am I going to work with? Who is the president going to work with in Texas to do the coordination on the strategic litigation and the appeals and all these various projects that we have? The Texas AG spot is mission essential. You're important, but if we screw that up, that's worse than having you leave. So I'm not telling you that you can launch tomorrow, but you need to do your due diligence. Where's the money going to come from? What does the path to victory look like? What does Ken think about it? Have you talked to him about it? What do your allies and mentors back in Texas think? You also, by the way, need to go talk to the White House. I don't know what the president thinks about this. I don't know what the chief of staff thinks or the deputy chiefs. I don't know. What I'm saying is, as a threshold matter, absolutely. You got to give it a look. And I spent the next 3 months in very prayerful, careful, deliberate due diligence about whether it made sense to run. And in June of 2025, all the doors came together. God providentially lined everything up. I said, okay, this is the path to victory. Here's where the money's going to come from. Here's where the endorsements are. These are my likely opponents. These are the people that have announced. These are the people that have not announced, but I think are going to announce. And it all just made sense. Meanwhile, always asking God to make his no clear. Because if at any point there was a door that wasn't going to open, have you ever been in a situation in your personal or professional life where God is very clearly giving resistance and you push through it anyway? What happens when you get in that new room? Regret, failure, frustration, and then you got to walk back. I've experienced that before. This was not one of those things. The stakes were too high for me to push my way into this. But God opened up every door, and I announced in mid-June. And since that time, we've had an incredible ride. And I mentioned some of just the fundraising just a moment ago. Why does this matter? Because it's someone with that kind of background that is ideally suited to serve as the next chief legal officer of Texas. Now, you guys are a very informed group. And so it's important to remember, and it's important for you to go share this with your friends. The Texas Attorney General, under Article 4, Section 22 of the Texas Constitution, says, quote, "The Attorney General shall represent the state of Texas in all courts and pleas." That's the job. This is a legal, law enforcement, executive branch job. It is not a legislative job. This is important fundamentally because we need to be informed voters. And if you're here tonight, you're an informed voter. But this is also critical because a lot of well-meaning, patriotic Republican primary voters haven't had to think critically about what this job does for over a decade. We've had Paxton, and overwhelmingly, we've elected him again and again and again. He's the incumbent. He's done exceptionally well, in my opinion, as AG. And we haven't said, look, he's doing a good job. I don't know exactly what he's doing, but he's kicking butt, and I want him to do it again. Now, we're having to go back and remind ourselves, now, wait a second. This isn't a legislative position. Why do I say this? It's important not only to get informed, but I have found, and I hope that you'll agree with me, but it is my opinion that many in the grassroots often engage with the political process through the lens of the legislature. What do we often talk about? This was a good session, a bad session. I like this House rep or state senator. I don't like this bill. I love this bill over here. We should have done this amendment. Hey, this draft bill got killed in committee on purpose. Like, we talk about it in terms of what bills. And then what happens after the session is your representatives will come up and stand in front of you and say, I stopped this bad thing from happening. And they say it so that you clap afterwards. And I made sure this good thing happened. And then they pause because you're supposed to clap there, right? They have their pictures, they get their ratings, and then we say, okay, we either had a conservative session or not. But this is not that job. The end of the legislative process is the beginning of the Attorney General's process. You can get all the good bills and all the good laws signed and into the law books all you want. But the only thing that matters is whether those bills survive the litigation that inevitably comes with it. Because for every good bill that the governor signs into law, there are 100 lawsuits about that good bill. For every good law that has an enforcement mechanism in it, you have to then enforce that law 1,000 different times all over the state. All you get with a bill without an attorney general who knows what he's doing with it is an inert law book on the bookshelf. Think about the attorney general's office or the attorney general like someone who presides over one of the most beautifully appointed armory of weapons. Now, for those who have been to a gun shop or just Cabela's or Academy or whatever, you see all those guns that are lined up on the wall, right? They're there. They're not doing anything. They can't do anything. They have no ammo in them, and they're not in a man or woman's hands to be used for their intended purpose. So what are they up on the wall? They're just metal and wood. That's all it is. Harmless. They do nothing. What the legislature does is they put those weapons on the wall. That's good. I'm not dogging the legislative process. I believe in 3 branches of government. I like good legislation. I'm not throwing out the whole process. But what I'm saying is that they provide, the legislative branch provides the executive branch with the tools to execute what those things are meant to do. So after a good session, as a lawyer, I can say, well, thank you, legislature, for all of those good things. But then what you need, and why this election matters, is you are now choosing who is going to preside over that armory. Who knows what weapons to use, when, how, in combination with what, and in what court? What piece of land do you do it on? Who's the enemy? Do you go on offense? Do you wait for defense? Is this fully automatic machine gun, or is this just a single shot rifle? Right? Do we need to coordinate with other states, or can we go it alone? These combat analogies matter because weapons in the hands of someone who's untrained or doesn't know what they're doing are pointless. They just become paperweights. And so this is really important to get this distinction right. Why? Because if my 3 opponents were standing here, let's say this were more of a forum than it was just sort of like one speaker tonight, right? They would all stand up here. I would give my remarks. I'd sit down. And they would come up here and they would tell you about all of the bills that they worked on. That's it. I was at a forum, in fact, just at lunch today in Bell County, right? That's where Belton is, sort of between Austin and Waco. We had one this afternoon. And it's like, oh, I'm so glad that you signed on to a bill that puts the 10 Commandments back up in our public schools. I love that. We all love that, don't we? We like the 10 Commandments, right? Yes. Every secular group in the state and the nation is litigating in every state court right now to get those enjoined, which is being blocked, from getting put up. So I like that we have a bill that empowers the placement, the display of the 10 Commandments in our public schools, but right now the AG's office probably has 40 to 50 lawyers ensuring that those 10 Commandments stay up on the wall. That's the thing that matters right now. So when someone comes to you and says, look at my legislature, I've been fighting for this in the legislature, you say, oh, that's very nice. Thank you very much. Are you running for re-election to the legislature? Or are you running to be the chief legal officer of Texas? Because if you're running for re-election to the legislature, that's great. Tell me about the legislation you worked on. That's great. That makes sense. But if you're applying to be the Attorney General of Texas, what you should be demanding is a legal record. Now, that's what I'm running on. I'm running on my legal record, litigating, investigating, suing, defending, and appealing on all of the major issues that we here gathered in this room care about. Now, I've known some of you for a while. I'm meeting others for the first time. So I don't know exactly what gets you up out of bed and engaged in the political process. You may be sitting here and saying, immigration is the most important thing. Islamification, the election integrity, border security, regulations, environmental issues, oil and gas, pro-life issues, pro-family, pro-faith, DAs, crime, law and order, gambling. You pick the issue. I don't know what it is, but in your mind right now, as you're sitting here listening to me, think of your top 1, 2, or 3 issues. I guarantee you that I have led legal troops into legal combat to deliver legal victories on those issues all up and down the chain of the justice system. That's the record that I'm running on. I've never served in the legislature a day in my life. That's okay, because I'm not running for the legislature. That's the fundamental difference. You remember what happened when Michael Jordan tried to play baseball? You remember? Oh, but he was such an athlete on the basketball court. He was so good. He was the greatest. By the way, I think he was the greatest too. I know there's a debate. Maybe some people think LeBron. I don't know. I think Michael Jordan, right? We agree Michael Jordan? Okay, good. I like that. Some of the younger guys might disagree. I don't know. But it's Michael Jordan, obviously. So this is a guy who said, hey, I'm a great athlete. I played baseball in high school. I think I've got what it takes. I'm ready to try. And what happened? He was a disaster. Not a bad guy, not a total non-athlete, but just because you perform well in one sport doesn't mean anything about whether you're ready to play in a different sport. And yet my opponents are trying to point to athletic stats that have nothing to do with the sport that they're trying to play. We're trying to play football here. I can give you my 40-yard dash time. I can give you my number of yards rushed, my number of yards completed, whatever. Like, pick the football stats. Why? Because I'm trying to be the head coach of the winningest football team in the country. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm here to play ball. My opponents are trying to say, oh, I'm a champion badminton player. I can play football. And it's like, badminton's fun, man, but that ain't what this is. Like, God bless your heart, but that ain't what this is, right? That's okay. It doesn't mean they're bad people. It just means they're not ready for this job. Now, I'll close with this thought, and then we'll do some Q&A. The first time that I ever swore an oath to the U.S. Constitution was as a brand new second lieutenant in the Marine Corps. I was 22 years old, and my hair was already fast approaching its current state, sadly. That's why I got married so soon. You see my beautiful bride. We met actually when we were 12 years old. I knew she was the one back then, but then I saw the sunlight start to hit the scalp a little too severely. Some of the guys understand what I'm talking about. You look at yourself in the mirror, you're like, wait a second, hold on. This isn't trending in the right direction. I said, okay, I found a good one. We got to make this happen. So got engaged before it could get any worse. And then it became like this. I said, sorry, babe. It's a lifetime covenant. That's what God says. God said you can't do anything about it. I don't know, right? Right, men? Isn't that a good line that we often use with our God said? I don't know, right? Anyway, I'm just kidding. We do love each other quite a bit, in spite of the haircut. 22 years old, brand new second lieutenant, I raise my right hand and I say, I, Aaron Reitz, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Now, as somebody who ultimately deployed to Afghanistan, somebody who really came up as a young man, as a teenager in my 20s during the era of the war on terror, I didn't know. Am I going to go to Iraq, Afghanistan? All the news, everything me and my buddies were thinking about during that time was Saddam Hussein, Al-Qaeda, Taliban, Afghanistan, Iraq, war, suicide bombers, 9/11, all that stuff. So when I swore that oath, I primarily thought about it in terms of the foreign enemies of the Constitution. The next time that I swore that oath was in the West Wing with my wife and 4 kids on my left and Attorney General Bondi on my right. And I raised my right hand again. I wasn't in uniform this time. I was in a suit and a tie. And I said the exact same oath, word for word. Not one thing different. And yet I had come to fully appreciate in those intervening nearly 20 years that even though we do have foreign enemies that are threats to our Constitution and our way of life, and we absolutely need to think about them, and aren't we happy that we have a president who is thinking rightly about foreign enemies and not getting us involved in a never-ending, interminable war like the one I went to? Isn't that right? I'm happy about that. I think he sees the foreign threats right. But I came to fully appreciate that it's not so much the foreign enemies that present the modern existential threat to us. It is, in fact, the second part of that second clause, the domestic enemies of the Constitution. I believe that our country's and our state's greatest enemies are among us. And I'm not just talking about the tens of millions of illegal aliens that invaded our country, although they are enemies and they ought to be immediately deported. Get them out of here. Every single one. I'm also not talking about those that are quote-unquote legal immigrants who scammed the immigration system and submitted paperwork during a totally negligent Obama and Biden administration. Nobody was vetting them. Nobody was double-checking their commitments. You get the Ilhan Omars of the world and her Somalian clique signing on their immigration paperwork. Yes, I'll be loyal to the United States. No, I have no foreign entanglements. No, I have no sympathies to these foreign governments. They're lying to you. They come here and they exploit this country and they hate us and they hate you. So I'm not just talking about the hordes of invaders that have come to this country. I'm talking about the native-born radical leftist Democrats who hate everything about this country. They hate your skin color. They hate your faith. They hate the English language. They hate our churches. They hate our communities. They hate our safe, happy, wholesome neighborhoods. They hate our education. They hate our founders. They hate our history and our heritage. They hate everything that we stand for. If conservatism stands to defend and advance all that is good, true, and beautiful, the left stands for the opposite of that. Everything that is evil, rotten, ugly, disgusting. That's what they represent. And the primary arena in which they are on the march is the justice system. They will have unlimited funding, unlimited law firms, unlimited media coverage, unlimited popular opinion to litigate against our values at every turn. And we need an attorney general who has been in nonstop combat against the enemy, the domestic enemy of our Constitution, whose body is covered in battle scars, not political talking points, not nice guy references to legislative agendas and whatnot, not somebody who reminds you of your nice grandson that you wish you had. But I want you to imagine, personalize this. I'm not just talking about vague principles about saving the republic, although we do have a republic to save. I want you to personalize it for a moment. I want you to imagine that you, as an individual, have all the dark forces arrayed around you, and they want to debank you. They want to take your money away. They want to get you fired from your job. They want to cancel you. They want to throttle your social media if they can't kick you off in the first place. They want to make it impossible for you to do business. They want to humiliate you. They want to besmirch your name. They want to turn your kids against you. They want to ruin your marriage. They want to destroy you in every way that you can possibly imagine. And when you're in a situation like that, you don't hire the nice guy. Although I like to think I'm kind of nice sometimes. When I need to be. I'm nice. Fun, right? I mean, right, we're nice. We're fun. Many people agree I'm very nice. You hire somebody who is going to destroy those people that wanted to before they can destroy you. My purpose and mission as the next Attorney General is singular, and it is to utterly destroy every last remnant of leftism, liberalism, DEI, Islam, LGBTQ, the trans agenda, the predators, the fraudsters, the disloyal corporate entities that want to just hollow us out and offshore all of our jobs. They are the enemy of this Constitution. And I will destroy them using every single constitutional, statutory, and regulatory tool at my disposal. And you don't just have to trust that I'm going to do it. You don't have to just hear me say, I will do this. It's all I've done for my entire career. I will go to war against the domestic enemies of the Constitution. And let me tell you this. President Trump trusted me to do just that. And he called me a true MAGA attorney and a warrior for the Constitution as a result of that confidence. Senator Cruz trusted me to do it. Attorney General Paxton trusted me to do it. It's why he has endorsed me to be the next Attorney General. And in his endorsement statement said, Aaron is the only qualified candidate in this race. He is the only one that I would trust to turn the keys of this office down to. And by the way, that's in spite of him knowing all of my opponents for decades. He's known them all. And he said, yeah, I like you guys, but absolutely not. Absolutely not. Paxton trusted me to do it. The Chief Justice of the Texas Supreme Court trusted me to do it. And our countrymen trusted me to support and defend our Constitution in uniform and carrying a gun. And now on the campaign trail, as a candidate, my ask to you is to trust me to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and especially domestic, as your next Attorney General. Thank you very much. Well, do we have time for Q&A?
You bet.
Okay, great.
So if you want to ask a question, please come up here to the mic. Remember, everything's being televised, so we want to get it on there.
Walk.
And one of the rules, remember, you're not up here to pontificate for half an hour. Ask you a question.
One of my favorite lines, a moderator once said, he said, please make your statement in the form of a question. And by the way, all topics are on the table, whatever you want to talk about. No filters. Here we go.
I have a big question
All right.
concerning something that's on your handout.
Uh-oh. Okay.
And a while ago, when you started to speak,
Uh-huh.
you told us that you graduated from Texas A&M, right?
Yes, sir, I did. Whoop.
On your card, you said, and the University of Texas.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's a graduate program. It's a graduate program. All right. Look. I also married a Longhorn, by the way. I married a Longhorn, so all right, we make everybody happy. I can't make anybody happy. No more questions. That wasn't even a question, by the way, Larry. He broke the rules immediately. Typical Longhorn. What a tea sipper, just breaking the rules. Yes, sir.
So I was looking for some comments. It's really important Supreme Court cases that are coming out in June.
Yeah.
Birthright citizenship, the mail-in ballot deadline, and then the Civil Rights Act of 1965. What are your thoughts on those?
So, well, I don't know what the legal question is in the Civil Rights Act of 1965. I'm familiar with the body of law. I don't know what the case is.
I'm close to that.
Yeah. So, okay, let me respond briefly to each of those. So, number one, birthright citizenship. Birthright citizenship is not a thing. It is fake. Okay. There are liberals. There are anti-native born Americans who want to interpret the 14th Amendment to suggest that merely by virtue of you being born on American soil that you are bequeathed citizenship. This is a complete misunderstanding of the text of the constitutional provision. It is also a total misapplication of some random Supreme Court case from the 1950s. Birthright citizenship is not a thing. Now, that litigation spun up the early stages of it when I was at the Justice Department. And the position that this administration and that I took when I was at DOJ and that I will continue to take as the next Attorney General of Texas is that the 14th Amendment does not contain what is known as birthright citizenship. It's fake. You can achieve citizenship you can get naturalized, right? Which, by the way, I think people often say illegal immigration bad, legal immigration good. I'm here to say that we need a complete immigration moratorium for at least a generation or two, right? 100%. So that's my comment on birthright citizenship. Not a thing. Second question on the Civil Rights Act of 1965. Too often, the so-called civil rights laws are often overly broad interpreted. And the body of civil rights statutes have basically been used to advance a DEI agenda. So all of the civil rights laws, while maybe written at the time in well-meaning spirit, have now been bludgeoned primarily against whites. That's what it is, right? So the Civil Rights Act, and today's Martin Luther King Jr. Day, I thought that we were supposed to judge people by the content of their character and not by the color of their skin. And yet the civil rights regime has been foisted upon us, and courts have interpreted it primarily to advantage select intersectional groups of minorities. And the more minority categories you fall under, the more these laws are manipulated to benefit you, primarily to discriminate against whites. And that whole body, that whole jurisprudential interpretation of it, it all needs to get scrapped. I'm very proud to see Harmeet Dillon. Harmeet and I got confirmed. We did our hearing together at Senate Judiciary Committee. We got confirmed on the same day. We are close friends. I'm very happy to see Harmeet Dillon, as the head of the Office of Civil Rights at DOJ, understand and agree with me clearly on this. And so as the next AG, you're going to have somebody who is well equipped to partner with the DOJ under Harmeet Dillon in order to advance that legislation. Now, that agenda through the courts. Now, on the question of mail-in balloting, I'm not sure what case you're referring to, but what I can tell you is my general view of mail-in ballots and elections generally. My position is elections should be same-day paper ballots. That's the gold standard. That's the gold standard. And yet we went through like the COVID era essentially blew that whole thing open. And it provided an illegal pretext to have never-ending early voting, ballot harvesting, mail-in ballots, no signature verifications, all these things. Now and I'll close with this thought. We have pretty good, we can always improve it. I want to be clear. We have better than most other states election laws on the books. Better than most other states. We can still have a lot way to go, but it's better than a lot of other states. This is where my job, the job I'm applying for, matters so much, because the AG's office houses an election integrity division. As Paxton's deputy, that was one of the divisions that reported to me during both the 2020 and the 2022 cycle. Now, the legislature has voted to reinstate some of the criminal law jurisdiction over violations of the Texas Election Code. Conveniently, they didn't do anything in 2023 because they were waiting for Paxton to leave office. They're totally vindictive. They didn't want to give it to Paxton in 23 until he said, I'm leaving. And then my two opponents who are in the state legislature right now said, ooh, I want those powers. Now I'm in favor of reinstating that's how ridiculous it is, right? But you need somebody who's going to take those election laws, which are good, and again, weaponize them. And I don't mean that in a bad way. The left has weaponized justice. These are tools that are on the wall. It's called the Texas Election Code. I'm going to go into that wing of the armory and pull off all of those big, beautiful statutes on the Texas Election Code, and we're going to go to war. And we're going to go to war against the big blue cities and counties with the corrupt elections administrators, the corrupt central counts, the corrupt 501c3 money laundering operation. You guys heard of Zuck Bucks? Remember Zuck Bucks? All these things, all these nonprofits that get laundered, that then get sent to people like Lena Hidalgo right down the street, who then uses a network of C3s, nonprofits, which can receive government money, to go and electioneer for liberal causes and liberal candidates. When I'm AG, we're going to put a complete stop to that. We're going to destroy it all. We're going to smoke you out. And again, you don't just have to trust that I'm going to do what I'm saying I'm going to do. I'm the only one in the race that's done it. So I hope that gets at least somewhat close to your 3 points. So there you go. All right.
Well, thanks for coming, Aaron. So we had a conversation a few weeks ago, and some people may know, many people may not. The conversation was about the Republican Party of Texas wanting to close primaries and the lawsuit with the Secretary of State's office. And I'm trying to remember, why did the AG's office deny coverage, and then they hired outside counsel for millions of dollars to fight the Republican Party of Texas?
Right. Yeah, that's right. Okay. This is a very interesting issue. Let's take a step back first, okay? Every state runs their primaries differently. It's up to them. Under the United States Constitution, state legislatures can determine how they run their elections, when they do it. The reason why early voting is on February 17th and election day is on March 3rd, that's just because that's how the legislature made it. It's not like a constitutional requirement or anything. Some states have their primaries in August. Sometimes they're, short windows open, whatever, right? That also applies to how their parties conduct their internal party business. So in Texas, we have had for many years what are known as open primaries. Closed primaries, in contrast, and every state's different, but closed primaries are where, have you ever heard somebody say, I'm a registered Republican, right? Now in Texas, that's not a thing, but in states that have closed primaries, you are a registered Republican, because in order to participate in Republican Party business, you have to register with them. It is open to those who register, but it is closed to those who are not. Now, there are all kinds of good public policy and political reasons why we ought to have closed primaries, and we can talk about them all day long. What we often have, especially in red counties like Montgomery, is you have libs who know that they can't win as Democrats, so they come and meddle in Republican Party politics. In different counties, sometimes you get a different dynamic where you get sort of cross-pollination in a different direction. But in Montgomery County, that's often what it says. You got libs who say, we're never going to win countywide office or anything like that. So I'm going to come, and you guys should be electing and sending to Austin and to Washington like absolute deep red people. But in an open primary system, you get a bunch of mods and libs who then drag what should be like fire breathers into a moderate position, right? So there's all kinds of good reasons. Why does this matter in a legal context? Because the Republican Party of Texas finally made a decision to want to close their primaries, which I fully support. Yes. The conflict arose when the Texas election code, so the statutes on the books, prohibit closed primaries. So you get a conflict. The party wants to close its primaries. Texas election code, section 12345, whatever it is, says that they have to be open. In order to reconcile the two, you have to have litigation. And so the party sued the Secretary of State, which is responsible for enforcing that provision of the Texas election code. When that happens, in due course, a state agency will then ask the Attorney General's office to represent it. It happens every time. You could be Health and Human Services, you could be CPS, you could be whatever it is. We get requests for representation 100 times a day. It's normally what we do. The Attorney General exercises independent constitutional judgment about whether to accept representation or to decline representation. It was Paxton's view, as it is my view, that a prohibition on closing the primaries is a violation of the First Amendment, and I'll explain why in a second, and therefore declined the invitation to represent the Secretary of State, which was asking us to defend an unconstitutional law. Why was the Texas election code mandating open primaries and prohibiting the RPT from closing primaries unconstitutional? Because the First Amendment contains what is often forgotten, but it's right in there with free speech, free exercise, is freedom of association. And so the RPT made an argument that says we have a First Amendment right to associate with whom we want, whomever we want. And so if we want to run party business closed, that's up to us. We're free to associate with whoever we want under the First Amendment. And so a statute that prohibits the exercise of free association is on its face unconstitutional. So Paxton rightly said, I'm not defending an unconstitutional law. Why would I do such a thing? Right? And not only did he decline representation, he then filed in support of the Republican Party of Texas and joined as a plaintiff. So now it's Attorney General Paxton and the Republican Party of Texas versus the Secretary of State. Now, the Secretary of State at that point had two choices. Number one, it could settle, which is to say capitulate. Just say, yeah, you know what, you're right. And that happens sometimes, by the way. Sometimes there are bad laws on the books, and if they're bad, agree that they're bad and get the judge to sign it, and then it's gone, right? But the Secretary of State decided, I don't know why, the pleadings do not explain very well that they filed, that they want to defend these state laws that are unconstitutional. So what I think is going to happen is that this is going to get litigated up to the Fifth Circuit and then up to the U.S. Supreme Court. I expect that the Attorney General and the Republican Party of Texas will win. The win will not happen in time for March 3rd. It just won't. But it will happen in time when I'm Attorney General for the 2028 presidential election. And at that point, you better darn believe that they're going to do everything they can to try to steal that thing again. And one of the best control mechanisms that they have, in addition to cracking down on election fraud, which I'll do in response to the first question I got about election integrity, but the other thing that will help us secure that election is to close the primary. By then, I'll be the Attorney General on the pleadings that go up to the U.S. Supreme Court, and we're going to fight that thing tooth and nail. And I expect, given the composition of the U.S. Supreme Court and the integrity and strength of the constitutional arguments that the party and the Attorney General are making right now, that we're going to win. We're going to close these primaries on First Amendment grounds by the time the 2028 presidential election happens, and I'm going to be the one to see it through. So that's what I would say about that case.
Thanks for being here tonight.
Of course, yeah.
I appreciate you
Yeah.
taking so much time to explain your background and all your experience and some of the cases.
Sure.
I have a special interest in protecting children, advocating for children in the public school.
Yeah.
And their curriculum, various activities that they have, and so forth. One of the issues that really distresses me is how the school districts have a employee, teacher, whatever, that has propensity or has experience, has prior assault records, and those records are not released. They've assaulted a child down in Klein ISD, not far from here. There were 2 teachers who were trafficking children in school.
It's insane.
And all these records are kept closed, and I'm wondering, is there anything that can be done in the AG office, or is it all the legislature that has to create laws or whatever to prevent these schools? They have their own police force, all their records are not released, so all that's kept a secret.
Yeah.
And is there anything that can be done?
Yes. Well, I appreciate the work that you do for kids and in our school districts. Here's what I'll tell you. This is true of school districts. It's also true of the thousands upon thousands of what we'll just refer to generally as political subdivisions. So these are municipal utility districts, public utility districts, cities, counties, all these sorts of things, right? Take the state, everything below it is what, for the purposes, as school districts are that way, the university systems are that way. So for the purposes of my answer, we're going to refer to all of these entities as political subdivisions. The primary source of corruption, fraud, waste, abuse, all kinds of evils, yes, it happens in Austin at the state level, but the worst offenders are the political subdivisions. They really are. That's why your property taxes rise so high. The state doesn't impose a property tax. It's your local city government. The school districts are not the ones hiding bad actors and issuing new bonds that then indent, your kids and grandkids to never-ending, debt servitude for years and years to come. And including when it comes to like criminal conduct like this, these political subdivisions will hide under a whole body of public information and privacy laws so that they can protect their own. Now, one of the useful tools that the AG has is he has a public information division, right? And the AG provides quasi-judicial decisions over disputes over what ought to be disclosed and what ought to be kept secret. Now, there are certain things, is a local police department investing some money in new law enforcement technology? Like the details maybe of, I'm making up a hypothetical, right? Like, is there some worthwhile investment that a sheriff's department or a police department could possibly make before it's ready to go public that should not be made public? The answer to that is probably yes in most cases. So if there's a dispute over that, we may not want to disclose that because it would be used for the anti-criminal or the anti-crime, or excuse me, the anti-police actors, the leftists and so forth. But what's often happened in these cesspools known as big school districts is they will hide under misinterpretations of the Public Information Act and say, well, this is all privileged stuff, or this happened during executive session. We don't have to disclose any of that stuff. And so you can never really get to the bottom of why they did what they did, or their records, or their disciplinary records, or anything like that. Can the AG do something with that? Absolutely. He can do 2 things. Number 1, he can identify these school districts as primary bad actors in hiding all of the fraud, waste, abuse, and criminality, and immediately begin launching investigations. Now, the AG's office has already done this. You might have seen a lot of the headlines recently on this, like sexual deviant in Salina ISD. You guys heard about this? Right? Like he's like perving on girls and he's still employed by the district and nobody knows why. And they're trying to find information. The AG's leaning in on that. So the AG, number 1, can rightly identify our school districts as primary bad actors. And then number 2, he can render correct decisions when public information disputes arise up to his office. The other fixes will need to be legislative. So if there are certain categories of information that we as the grassroots feel ought to not be withheld and should be disclosed, then those are things that need to get read into either the Open Meetings Act or the Public Information Act. But the AG can use his bully pulpit to advise the legislature on how to do that in a way to achieve desirable outcomes. So there's my answer. Not as spicy of an answer, but it's really important work. All these public information disputes come to the AG's office. So yes, sir.
Thank you. We did stop immigration for about 50 years to allow for assimilation already. My issue is one that I find to be very potentially dangerous in the future, and that is we're allowing people to swear into office on the Quran. Now, if they're to assimilate, and when they swear on the Quran allows them to lie,
right,
and forbids any other religion.
Right.
So how can they be swearing into an office of the United States to support our Constitution while denying all other religions? And can you do something just to say, no, swearing into the Bible, we're a Judeo-Christian country, it's our history, it's our tradition, it's our law, and the Quran is not acceptable.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the question. First, I also noticed this man's hat. We got a Vietnam War veteran here. That's pretty cool. Let's give him a round of applause. Let me tell you something. This guy didn't go to the jungles of Vietnam to see us get invaded by a bunch of Muslims and foreigners. I guarantee you that, right? That's not what any of those boys in Vietnam were thinking about. I think that we have completely betrayed those who have sacrificed their lives for this country only to see us be invaded over the last 50 years by a bunch of godless, pagan, America-hating, unassimilated, unassimilable, anti-Judeo-Christian people. It's insane to me what we have allowed to happen in this country. And it's happened, by the way, ground zero is Texas. Have we not been asleep at the wheel? How many exploitative Fortune 100 companies do we let come into this state? We have a groundbreaking ceremony. Oh, I'm so happy that this major, massive company moved from California to put down roots in the DFW area, and they say, thank you very much. I'm going to take advantage of your favorable economic climate, but I don't care about your values. And as soon as I get in and reincorporate and I submit my paperwork with the Secretary of State, I'm immediately going to flood your neighborhoods with H-1B visa holders. And you're not even going to be able to know what's happening in your schools anymore, your communities. Before you know it, you've got a Hindu temple, you've got a mosque, you've got Epic City popping up, all that stuff. It's insane what we have allowed happen to this country. So let me be clear. Islam is incompatible with Western civilization. This country, our founders, created a constitutional republic under the assumption that we would maintain some degree of homogeneity about our values, our religion, our culture, and our language. And our system only works when those foundations are intact. But when the culture balkanizes, when you've got no-go zones, when you've got ghettos of completely unassimilated and unassimilable, and what I mean by that are generations of immigrants who not only won't assimilate, but are so foreign to our way of life that no matter how hard you try, you can't assimilate them. It's not possible to assimilate them, right? And in many cases, they are animated by a religion, a worldview that prohibits them from assimilating to their host country. Why do I refer to this as their host country? Because they're no better than parasites. These unassimilated foreigners with a religion that is anathema to the American way of life and Western civilization. They are exploiting us right underneath our noses, and they're laughing at you. And they're getting small business handouts. They're getting DEI benefits. They're getting race-based, skin color-based grants from the federal and state government. And it's ridiculous. And it should absolutely infuriate you what has happened underneath our noses. What can I do as Attorney General? What's that? Of course they do. Of course they do. You want to talk about the gentleman, our Vietnam War veteran friend, mentioned that we went through a period of no immigration and assimilation. Here's the other problem. I'm for a total moratorium on immigration for at least 50 years. That's the first thing. But ask yourself this. Even if we halt all immigration right now and we deport, I don't know, 100 million foreigners, I think 100 million is the right number. People say 1, 2 million. I say 100 million. Get rid of them. DHS put out a great meme like 2 weeks ago. They got in trouble for it, where it was like this beautiful beach vista, and then just the text on it was deport 100 million illegals or something. I was like, yeah, hell yeah, I like that. That's pretty cool. I shared that with my friends. That gets me fired up a little bit. I like memes, gets me going. Here's the thing, though. Think about this for a second. Even if we halt all immigration and deport 100 million illegals right now, do we right now have a culture that is substantive enough, takes itself seriously, is pervasive enough to where we can even assimilate people anymore? I don't know that we do. I think we do in this room. But are our public schools right now fit to assimilate foreigners? No. So we've got it. This is a deeper philosophical. We could talk too long about this. I know we have other people. But I not only want to halt all immigration and deport people, but I want to live in an America and in a Texas that is so confident about its own sense of self, our own history, our own destiny, that we know actually how to assimilate people. That you can go to school, read the 10 Commandments, memorize the 10 Commandments, say a prayer to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, learn Bible history, learn our founding history, be proud of our forefathers, learn the English language, learn good music and good, wholesome art, and the whole American thing, and be proud of it and believe in it. That's what I want to see with assimilation as well. So what can I do as Attorney General? At least on the Islam question, and by the way, I was the very first candidate in this race who on the campaign trail is talking about the Islam problem. First one. I can show you receipts. I wrote an article about this that went viral back in early July, 2 weeks after I announced. All my other candidates, because again, they don't know what they're doing. They just take my notes, and now all of a sudden they want to talk about the Islam problem. It's like, where you been, bud? I've been talking about it from the beginning. I mean, I like that they talk about it, but they're stealing my notes. At least give a little credit, okay? But the AG's office here, remember I mentioned this before. Just like the leftists, the Soros network, right? The Islamists also have their own vast network of nonprofits, corporate entities, political action committees, corporate entities that they've renamed to not sound too scary. Like Epic City, you guys have heard of Epic City? Do you know the name of the corporate entity that created Epic City? Anybody know it? Nope. No, it is Jihad. No, Epic City renamed itself to the Meadow because Epic City was like, wait, people have caught on to what we're doing. Let's call it the Meadows. Don't you want to live in the Meadows? Of course, we all want to live in the Meadows. Probably somebody here lives in the Montgomery County version of the Meadows, right? We like the Meadows. No, Epic, the mosque. Epic is the mosque. Epic City is the thing that they created. But in order to create Epic City, they created a shell company where people could invest into. That's the corporate entity. They named it Capital Community Partners. Now, if you're just reading through corporate charters and you get to Capital Community Partners, you're like, sounds good, next, and you just move on. Because they know what they're doing. These aren't stupid people. They're very sophisticated. They're becoming increasingly sophisticated, and they have nearly unlimited international and national funding to advance their project here in Texas. And they've taken advantage of spineless Republicans who have no idea what time it is, who are giving you talking points, and who absolutely are going to take advantage of the next AG if it's not me, because again, they have no idea what they're doing. There is a real danger, by the way. I'm not just like talking campaign smack right now. There is real danger that if someone who has to learn how to be the Attorney General succeeds Ken, that all the pleadings, all the motions for rehearing, all the petitions, all the responses, all the lawsuits, they will get filed in the year 2027. AG gets sworn in January 2027. Why do I say this? Because that will be the year in which the next Attorney General is getting his footing, hiring his staff, figuring out where the bathroom is, doing all these things, getting trained on, like, what are these claims that are being made? It will actually leave us very, very vulnerable. I'm being dead serious, right? We need to have that continuity. Okay, so back to the Islam problem. The AG has vast constitutional, statutory, and regulatory powers to not only investigate, but to litigate against all these entities. And in short, out of respect for time, I'll just say this. I've said this repeatedly. I will treat the Islamists in Texas like the feds treated the mafia in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. What do I mean by that? I mean it quite literally. How many big mob bosses did we put behind bars for committing murder? None. Why? Because they're smart. They wipe their fingerprints off the gun. So what did we get them on? Process crimes, financial crimes, RICO, racketeering, money laundering, sex trafficking, drug trafficking, human trafficking, tax fraud, you name it. What did we do? We suffocated them to death. Yes, the mafia is still a thing, but the reason why we make movies about it is because it's not really a thing. It was a thing. Now it's not. The Islamists right now are breathing free American air, and they are growing and getting stronger. I'm going to overwhelm them with state and federal law to where they are choking on it, to where only the only thing that they could do is self-deport. That's it. Get out of here. I'm either going to sue you and break your neck in court, or you're going to hate it so much that you're just going to go to Ilhan Omar's district. I'd rather they go back to their third world country that they came from, but if they won't go there, they damn well are not going to be in Texas. That's the bottom line.
Aaron, a man who is not brave enough to say what needs to be done, will not be brave enough to do what needs to be done. Thank you for always saying what needs to be done. And thank you for being so protective of America and Texas.
Thank you.
Have a question.
Okay, great. That was a great tee-up, though, wasn't it, everybody? That was fantastic. I agree. I think everybody agrees, right? Yes.
Montgomery County loves you.
Good. Well, I love Montgomery County.
And we have a problem with dual citizenship. In the 1970s, up until the 1970s, dual citizenship was illegal. And then the Supreme Court heard a case about a communist who went home, joined the army, went to combat in his homeland, went to come back, and they met him at the border and said, "You're not welcome, you're not a citizen, go get a visa." And he said, and so he sued and went through all the courts, and the commie joined him, and they overturned our law and made it to where dual citizen is legal. In this globalist world, I personally know people who vote in America and then vote in their home countries. They live in their home countries. They get Social Security sent to their home countries. They get welfare and everything sent to their home countries. And so it's not justice for Americans who don't have dual citizenship to have less power in the world because we're not dual citizens.
Right.
And in Texas, our politicians, we don't even know how many of them are dual citizens sitting in office because they don't have to tell us if they're a dual citizen when they run for office. Is there some game we can play with the law on the wall that we can force them to tell us if they have dual citizenship?
Yeah, great question. So let me start by telling you what I believe about the issue, and then I'll tell you kind of how we might be able to do something about it in the justice system. I think that dual citizenship is ridiculous. I mean, think about it for a second. Citizenship, Citizenship, this gets back to the culture questions that we were talking about before. Citizenship ought to be a very weighty and significant thing, an honor that you are bestowed, right? You don't just get it because you come here because you're an anchor baby. You don't just get it because you are the product of birth tourism. You don't just get it because of some ridiculous interpretation of the 14th Amendment to grant birthright citizenship. Part of the reason why we have such a shallow and empty culture today is because there's no concept of citizenship, right? The founders viewed citizenship with the same degree of gravity that the Romans understood citizenship to be. Like, it was a big freaking deal to be a citizen of Rome. And that sort of, that Republican sense, that small r Republican sense of, this is my body, this is my body politic, right? I have a gun in my home because I might have to defend it. I've got my uniform ready to go in case me and the guys get called up to defend this thing, right? You've got to have a stake in the project. And if you don't have a stake in the project, well, you might be able to live here, but you ain't a citizen with the full rights of what it means to be a citizen. Dual citizenship is fundamentally an affront to all of that. Citizenship is not just a membership ticket. It's not just like a pass to go and shop. Like, America is not just an economic zone. We're not just a mall where, like, oh, you're here. Yeah, I'm an American. I've got the papers. I guess I can exist here. But during the off season, I'm going to go be a dual citizen in this other country. It's ridiculous. So I hate the concept of dual citizenship. Pick one. Pick one. Look, if you got two, you want to be a dual citizen of some other country, go over there. That's fine. But you want to be here, you got to make a choice. Where are your loyalties? You're either loyal to America or you're loyal to some foreign country. Now, what can be done? Now, what I'm about to say, I'm purely spitballing. This is the first time I've thought really deeply about this, but here's how this would happen, right? How do we revisit the question? See, this is so controversial. They're coming for me, by the way. We got to get out of here. Like, the dual citizenship, they're coming for me, all right? They're just point to me where the back door is. Gavin, where's my staffer? I need a back door exit here, okay? So the way that I could see this unfolding, could be wrong about this, I'm just spitballing, okay, is that in Texas, you either pass a law or you begin enforcing from the executive branch a requirement that in order to hold public office, you have to disclose your citizens. Just say it. Just mandate it. Mandate it, right? Because that's common sense. Then what's going to happen, here's where the AG comes into play. Because that will then get litigated by all the foreign interest groups and all the foreign sympathizers, the America Last types, the libs. They're gonna say, oh, this is racist, this is terrible, this is awful, right? Whatever their arguments are going to be. They're going to cite as their legal basis that Supreme Court judgment that got it wrong. Then what's going to happen is the AG will step in a defensive posture to defend whatever action we take or piece of legislation, whatever it may be, right? That will then get litigated up to the U.S. Supreme Court. The U.S. Supreme Court will then be asked by me, the Attorney General of Texas, to overturn or revisit or narrow that wrong holding. And then we have a country now with a U.S. Supreme Court holding that says such and such versus Texas now declares that dual citizenship is unconstitutional. And that's the result I want to get to. All right, I will be very brief with my answers. How about that? I'm going to be so fast. I'm very brief with my remarks, as everybody knows. Yes.
So, election integrity.
Yes.
My issue. Secretary of State, they just don't enforce the laws that are on the books.
Right.
And so without that, I think you talked a little bit about election integrity, but kind of what's your plan with Secretary of State, or is it a blanket, you're just going to hit everybody?
So wait, clarify that last piece there. Am I going to?
Well, your plan,
yeah.
You talk about just going after election integrity laws.
Oh, right.
But specifically, the Secretary of State did their jobs would be 70% there.
Yeah, but so my posture will be, I'm not going to wait for the Secretary of State to do anything, right? I'm an independently elected, statewide constitutional officer. the Secretary of State is free to do or not do. I hope that she does the right thing, or if it's a new Secretary of State, I hope that they do what they can. But there is almost nothing in the Texas Election Code that requires me to wait, right? Even, and this is something you and I talked about one time, there are a lot of times where investigations into alleged violations of the Texas Election Code require some sort of formal referral from the Secretary of State's office over to the AG's office. Well, when I was Paxton's deputy and I oversaw our election integrity division in 2020 and 2022, what we did is we just opened up our own referral landing page on the website so that we did not have to wait for the Secretary of State. So we're just going to do it. Look, I know that this is like for people that are online too much. You've probably heard the meme, like it turns out you could just do things. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, Mark and I are online too much. Okay, it's good and bad. But like, you can just do it. Oh, but the procedure manual says that we must wait for the Secretary of State. I don't care. What are you talking about? Come stop me, right? Somebody, what is it? What are you going to stop me from investigating allegations of election fraud? Good luck. With what troops? So I don't care. We're going to go crazy with the election. I mean, this election. Yeah, I'm getting fired up just thinking about what we're going to do. You should get excited. It's going to be crazy. Sir.
I'm glad you talked so much about the cultural destruction going on.
Yeah.
Because I believe the radical left's main technique of taking down the United States of America is through dilution and destruction of the culture. And a lot of people want to point their finger all the time at Soros and his group. Who's behind it. If you look at Merz in Germany, Macron in France, Steiner in the UK, Van der Leyen in the EU, as well as Obama and Biden, they're all destroying their own cultures. There's got to be somebody behind this, some group behind this, and I've heard some pretty intelligent commentators talk about this and basically say no one knows who these people are that's trying to destroy these cultures, including the American culture. Has there been or will there be any investigation at where this is all coming from?
So look, I will tell you that I subscribe to a maybe slightly different philosophy. I agree with your diagnosis of the problem. I don't think that there are actual masterminds behind this. I think that leftism, cultural malaise, cultural degradation, the failings of the West that we're living through right now is like a metastasizing cancer or virus that is just diseased the body politic, and is now what we have now. Our Western leaders are just sort of presiding over the decline rather than doing anything about it. But I think that the body politic is rotten, and I think what's necessary is for strong conservatives to rise up and introduce a political chemotherapy to a cancer that is destroying the West right now. I don't know that I can point my fingers at it. I just know the enemy that's right in front of me. So I'm going to cut out the cancer when I can. So, but I don't know that there are some like three guys that are the vast. George Soros is a leader, but it's not like Soros was doing like introducing leftism in college campuses in the 60s, right? Like that's the beginning. I can trace historically the beginnings of the end was no doubt sort of post World War II Western guilt. That then the Cultural Revolution happened in the 60s, and that's where you see all of these terrible bills, terrible laws, cultural issues happen. And now, like conservatives, we've been content to occasionally get a good bill from time to time. No, I mean, look, I don't know. I think that a cultural revolution happened starting in the 60s. I think we're living in the full fruits of that. And I think what's necessary now is what can only be described as a counter-revolution. I want to see a counter-revolution to reject the leftism of the past 70 years. Yes, ma'am.
Howdy.
Howdy.
I'm a fellow Aggie, so I can say that. That's your first call.
All right. Thank you.
I know you have touched base with Bill with Ken Paxton, but I'm just saying he endorsed you.
He
so
did,
that's
yes.
A lot right there, but I appreciate your conviction on all of the issues that you talked about. I agree with all of those. But that, I was just going to make a comment and then a question, but that was, I think what people like about Ken Paxton is that he was, I would say, proactive instead of reactive, which
Right.
you've already alluded to. You don't want to just sit back and that's the kind of attorney general that we want. It's not somebody that waits till something's so bad that it's driven over a cliff before they do anything.
Right.
We want, action
Right.
ahead of time. But
Yes.
also my question is, because I've heard different stories on this. I know it was a big talk several years ago in one of the last elections, recent elections, but the fact that Ken Paxton, as Attorney General, was not able to prosecute election fraud. Why have an Attorney General if you can't prosecute fraud? That's one of the.
Right. Exactly.
So what is the status of that? Because I've heard different
Sure.
things on because I think that was changed. Hopefully.
Yes. Yeah, it was great question. So subject is election integrity. In the summer of 2021, the Court of Criminal Appeals, so in Texas, we have a bifurcated Supreme Appellate Court system, right? So you've got everybody's heard of the Texas Supreme Court. They resolve all disputes at the highest level over civil law matters, constitutional matters. And then you have the Court of Criminal Appeals, which resolves disputes over criminal law matters, right? So it comes up through the system, and then if it's civil, it goes Supreme. If it's criminal, it goes Court of Criminal Appeals. The Texas Election Code contains many criminal law provisions, and so there was a dispute over whether the Attorney General has a constitutional right to criminally enforce provisions of the Texas Election Code. And it got up to the Court of Criminal Appeals, and the Court of Criminal Appeals said, no, the Attorney General is violating separation of powers principles by enforcing criminal provisions of the Texas Election Code. What that did is it basically eviscerated 80% of the election code powers that the AG's office had. The decision was manifestly legally stupid. Like, it was internally illogical. Now, there was one dissent. It was an 8-1 decision. Judge Yeary was the one dissenter. He's actually up for re-election on the Court of Criminal Appeals. You should support him for that spot for his re-election. I don't know if he has a primary challenger, but Yeary was the one guy who dissented and said, this is baloney. This is ridiculous, right? So it basically didn't tie just one hand behind the AG's back. It tied two hands behind the AG's back. It then fell upon local district attorneys to then prosecute violations of the election code, which is to say no one was prosecuting the violations of the election code, because all the election fraud happens in the big blue cities and counties, which are presided over by Soros-funded DAs, which not only don't prosecute any crimes, but they certainly don't prosecute or investigate allegations of violations of the election code. So it was a terrible problem. Now, the legislature had an opportunity in 2023 during the session then to reinstate those powers to the AG's office. But because the legislature, including my two state senator opponents, hate Ken Paxton, they did nothing to reinstate those powers. It was purely punitive. The next time that the legislature picked up an election code bill to reinstate those powers was only after Paxton announced for AG. In April, Paxton announced for the Senate. Paxton in early April announced for the Senate. Then all of a sudden, Joan Huffman and May's middleweight started to say, oh, I want those powers. I wasn't going to give them to Ken, but I want them for me. And so they reinstated those powers. That's a good thing. I'm just highlighting the ridiculousness of what my opponents are doing on this issue. If they actually cared about election integrity, they would have fixed it in 2023, but they didn't do anything about it. They waited until Paxton was gone. That being said, the powers have been reinstated. The AG now again has criminal law jurisdiction over violations of the Texas Election Code. I'm the only one who has actually wielded those weapons in a criminal law context and in a civil law context, but also a criminal law context. And so when I talk about the answer to my question, I'm getting excited because that wing of the armory is reopened, baby. I mean, it was closed for a little while. It's open. And there's some pretty sweet weapons in there. And we are going to slay a whole bunch of libs with all those new laws. I can't wait to do it. Hey, what's up?
So my question is for a couple of years in the future. You'll have already been the AG for a while by then. You'll have settled in. It seems like every time there's a new election, president leaves power, someone from previously weak side tries the power play.
last time Trump got out of office, all the COVID shenanigans happened.
Mhm.
So my question is, what can and will you do as the Texas AG to protect Texas from the next plague?
Yeah, it's a great question. So remember, the AG's term is 4 years. First 2 years, we will have Trump in office as president. That's great. It means two things. Number one, it means we can take all of those aligned resources and values and bring it all to bear to benefit Texas. That's a really good thing to have a friend in the White House. Because when I was Paxton's deputy, we had Biden in office, and I don't want to say I'm ashamed to say, I'm just telling you what the reality is. We were in constant combat with the Biden administration that a lot of times our hundreds of lawyers were just trying to stop the worst excesses of the Biden administration. And so some funny business slipped through the cracks in a lot of the big blue cities and the counties, right? I'm not blaming anybody. That's just the nature of war sometimes. You got to focus on the enemy in front of you. But the benefit is not only, number one, to bring all of those aligned resources to get all of the oars rowing in the same direction, but it also means that I don't have to worry about going to war with the administration. There may be certain things where we have a disagreement from time to time. That's natural, and we'll handle it. But what that means is my full force of the office can be focused internally right here on the home front. That's hugely beneficial. Now, what's going to happen right in the middle of my 4-year term? 2028 presidential election. Now, we are all lifting up in prayer and in political activism, making sure that a Republican wins the presidency in 2028, period. But if, God forbid, a Democrat wins in 2028, we are going to war. It will be total war. Texas will lead on all of the major lawsuits. This is the largest red state law firm in the country. Where Texas leads, every politician says, you know, as goes Texas, so goes the nation. As goes the nation, so goes the world. I get it. That's true. It's become kind of cliche in the campaign trail. Everybody says it. But I'm telling you, as a practical matter, literally all of the other red states rely on Texas's legal work. We have nearly 700 lawyers in the AG's office. The next largest is Florida, red state, and they've got maybe 300. And then after that, it's like we're talking 20 people, 15 people. They just don't have the resources to go to total war. It's like the Allies in World War II. It's like once America gets involved, it's like boom, war. Like it's over. We're going to town. You know what I mean? So we're going to go to war. I don't know where my friend that asked. There he is. But like that's what we're going to do. If it's a Republican, then great. Then we have 2 more years of relative peacetime. We're going to fight internal, like inside on the home front. But we're going to go to war, and no one better. I'll leave with this, and then we'll get to the final question, maybe. Everyone, I want you to assume for a second that every candidate, again, imagine this were a forum and all my opponents were lined up here and they gave you the same exact answer. We will fight against a lawless Democrat administration, said in a tone that gets an applause line, right? That's how they talk. You have to ask yourself, who has actually been to combat before? The difference between me and my opponents is that they will say that they will do things, and you have to hope that they will do it. You have to infer, based upon their performance in a totally different sport, whether they will prove themselves to be capable and winning athletes in this other sport. The difference that I offer is this is the only sport that I play. I actually have a winning record in this sport. So everyone's going to tell you they're going to go to war against a hypothetical future Democratic administration. I'm the only one who Paxton endorsed in part because, as I said in my opening comments, I sued the 46th president 46 times and I won 85% of those cases. You don't have to wonder whether I'm going to go to war. I'm absolutely going to war. And that's what we're going to do.
Okay, this is our next to the last question.
The penultimate question.
I would ask y'all to keep the conversations down and please stay until we're done. Normally, we ask the candidates to come up front first, but tonight I decided to let them come afterwards because I knew this was going to be intense. So
By which he means long.
If the
That's all.
candidates would come up behind over here and get in line, if you want just a minute to say hi and what you're running for, that'd be great. If not, I'm okay with it.
And by the way, I'm not in a rush to get out. I'll be hanging around until y'all are tired of hanging out for a little bit. I got nowhere else to be. So
that's okay. They close at 9 and it's 9:15.
Oh, all right. Well, we can relocate somewhere else. I don't know. We can get a beer somewhere.
Would
Yeah.
we be better off with a national voting law or keeping it as it is for each state as their own laws? And also, the reason why we're having so much trouble is because the devil in his demons.
Oh, because of the what? What was the last?
Devil in his demons.
Oh, because of the devil. No, I agree that we're in a spiritual battle. I think we're in a battle for the soul of our state and our nation, for sure. So here's what I think matters the most. And you're going to think maybe I'm being hyperbolic or just saying political lines. I think the most important thing is actually just destroying the left, right? And so right now, while we're in power, here's the thing about your average worthless Republican. They will say things like, but what happens when the shoe is on the other foot? They're already trying to kill us. We don't have to wonder what they do when they're in power. Oh, but what happens if we do what we need to do to win, but that sets a bad precedent and then gives them the permission structure to do. Brother, sister, they're going to put your neck in a guillotine at the first opportunity. So if it's either kill or be killed. And so right now, Republicans control both the upper and the lower chamber of the United States Congress. Republicans control the executive branch. Republicans control the judicial branch. If imposing certain federal requirements or federal mandates or federal laws is what's necessary to secure our elections before the Democrats steal it again and try to trans your grandkids and kids, I don't care. I want to win now. This ain't the 1980s anymore where but if we pass a federal election statute, the left will abuse it and hurt us. They're already going to do it. So I'm not talking about abusing the power given to us. The American people voted for Republican majorities. They want our Republicans to exercise the constitutional powers that they imbued them with. Why don't they use it? By the way, the same could be said about our elected representatives in Austin. Right? This goes back to our earlier conversation about, Montgomery County. If we had closed primaries, we wouldn't have squishes betraying our values in Washington. I'm not pointing at anybody in particular, by the way. I get along with them. It's fine. I'm not naming names. Not yet, at least. I didn't have anything to drink. So, if we want to go to the bar afterwards, I might start naming names. You never know. Yeah, right. So my point is, in an ideal system, in an ideal constitutional republic, in an ideal federal system, right, the states would be doing everything and the federal government would be doing virtually nothing. I would love to somehow transport ourselves back in time to a system in which the federal government was constrained by enumerated express powers under Article 1 and Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution. I would love for that to happen. However, as it stands right now, I believe that the left are the enemies of this country. And I am willing to use any and all lawful, constitutional, statutory, and regulatory powers to destroy them. Why? Because they want to use my tax dollars to trans my children. That's why. That's why. Because they want me to hate myself because of my skin color. Because they want me to hate my heritage and my founders. No, absolutely not. Kill or be killed. We're in a battle for the soul of our state and our nation. I'll use any and all powers available to me. All right, this is the last one.
conversation tonight.
Yeah.
Like, I could sit and listen, because you're constitutionalist, I can tell.
Thank you.
But, you'll love the Constitution.
We love it, baby.
So, freedom of religion.
Yeah.
And we're seeing Islam move in. And as an American, yes, you have the right to religion. But as I talk to people, okay, but there's a fine line between freedom of religion as an American constitutionally. Where's the line drawn to where we're seeing Minneapolis?
Right. Yeah.
I don't even know how to ask.
No. It's a great question. You've teed it up. Actually, the question is: look, we live in a country that has a history of religious toleration. We read the First Amendment. We look at our founding. Right at the time of the founding, we had a huge diversity of Christian denominations. By the way, so I want to be very clear. Our founders understood and believed that the oxygen that we would be breathing would have been fundamentally Christian. And so this idea that foreign invaders with foreign religions would be superpopulating different regions of our country, our founders are spinning over in their graves. Our founders were brilliant in many ways, but they understood that you had to have certain shared values, virtues, language, history, culture that then allowed people with differences of opinion to be able to peacefully coexist together. Because fundamentally, you shared the same foundation, the same values. You spoke the same language. You share the same history. You had the same cultural inheritance. And then within that shared set of values, within that sort of, to use a terrible term, safe space, right? You could then have diversity of thought and opinion. How much tax dollars? Do we have a central bank or a decentralized bank? Do we have fiat currency or gold currency? Do we have like a national standing army, or do we just rely on a militia? Like, all these are very interesting conversations where people of goodwill can actually have reasonable disagreements, right? On all kinds of public policy issues. But when the country becomes impossibly and irreparably diverse, you lose all of that commonality. And then it's just war against all. You don't have that shared trust. You don't have the shared belief. You don't have the intuitive connection with your neighbor, because they're just foreign. I mean, literally foreign, but also everything in their mind is foreign. Everything about their belief is foreign. And so part of the evisceration of our common culture is because of that balkanization. It's the view that we're a melting pot, that diversity is our strength. No, diversity is not our strength. Unity is strength, right? And even to the extent our founders understood that diversity was like a thing, because remember, in the New World, we're this continental thing. It was huge. It was diverse. It was expansive. It was spread out. A central power was going to be very, very difficult. So they create a limited and enumerated central government, and then they allowed the states to basically do whatever they want. Here's a history lesson. At the time of the founding, and for at least 75 years after the founding, each of the states had, in different ways, their own state churches. You could use tax dollars to fund expressly Christian institutions, education systems, programs, churches. Why? Because they believed that the Christian faith was as important to good living, human flourishing, prosperity, as clean air, clean water, roads, and all of those other things. We might all agree it is, and it is. I think that a legitimate role of government is to make sure, I'm just going to give you one, maybe sounds like off topic, but it's not off topic. That a legitimate role of government is to make sure that your drinking water has not been polluted by people. That's a legitimate role of government. Do we agree? Can we at least agree that you have a right for someone to not pollute your air and water. I'm not talking about environmentalism. I'm just saying that's a reasonable thing. Our founding generation believed that having a robust faith life was as essential to prospering in a free republic as clean air and clean water. And therefore, the states had a legitimate interest in what's the word I'm looking for? Aiding and abetting or supporting faith traditions. So it is part of the American tradition to expressly favor the Christian faith. Now, how do we get to this problem that we're at? And this is where I'm going to wrap up my comments, okay? There is a difference in First Amendment jurisprudence and in the American tradition of religious liberty between belief and practice. So if you are a Satanist, you cannot engage in human sacrifice, even if it is your sincerely held religious belief to do so. Well, they do, actually. The human sacrifice that the Satanists that they engage in is called abortion, actually. That is their sacrament. That is their sacrament. They actually do, and they are satanic, okay? But you can't, and this has been litigated, you can't claim, okay, I'm from the Church of Satan, and it is one of our important sacraments to kill another willing victim. Like, you can't do that. Because you can believe that Satan is your Lord and Savior all you want. I would like to deport you if that's your view, right? I'd like to get rid of you. But you can't then engage in certain practices that then violate the highest law of the land, which is the United States Constitution, which is consistent with Judeo-Christian principles. And so this is where the Muslims come into play. Because you can come here and believe in Allah, I guess. Again, I would hope that that population is tiny. I hope that it's a minority. I am tired of the people coming from Muslim majority countries and erecting their own little communities and not integrating. That's an immigration issue. But let's assume for a second that you get a fully assimilated, integrated person who happens to believe Allah and Muhammad is the prophet or whatever. You're free to have that view in the privacy of your home. But what you're not free to do is to band together with other Muslims to then enact a certain de facto Sharia law. That's illegal. It violates the Constitution. It violates the Supremacy Clause. It violates our history and tradition. It's inconsistent with the First Amendment. You keep naming it. So there is a difference. This is how, so when you leave from here and you're like, how do I draw this line? Or I talked to one of my maybe left-leaning friends who gave me a religious liberty argument for why I can't be against Sharia law. Don't be fooled. There is a difference between belief and practice. You can believe whatever the heck you want to believe, but you can't necessarily do whatever you want to practice that, no matter what you believe. There are restrictions on that. Belief and practice are different. There's the answer. All right, I think that's it. Sorry, candidates, I took up all this time. That's all I've got, but I'll be around.
So does anybody have a question to why that we as the Montgomery County Tea Party endorsed him? No. And I looked down, I said he'd knock your socks off. Well, he only knocked part of Larry's off. The top part.
Yeah, he's just got some ankle socks here. Yeah, that's. Yeah.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you very much. I appreciate y'all. Thank you, guys. I'll be around. All right, everybody else.
Please be quiet and let them have their time, please.
I don't want to follow that guy. Give it up for Aaron Reitz. Good job, Aaron. All right, we're 29 short days away from the beginning of early voting. And you guys are amazing. I've watched time and time again when it was easier for you to stay home, you show up. Because we know that courage and persistence turns history, right? So the odds don't scare us because all of us working together with passion and persistence, we know that the impossible begins to seem like the inevitable. And we're going to do it. If we work, we win. I'm John Boucher. I'm running for Texas House District 16. I'd appreciate your support. God bless you.
Hi, my name is Joanne Linzer. I'm running for judge of the 359th District Court. And I got to tell you, tonight made me very nostalgic for almost 25 years ago when I was in Austin and serving as an assistant attorney general in the Law Enforcement Defense Division before I became a prosecutor for 18 years. I've had almost over 2 decades of criminal law experience. I'm ready to serve as the next judge of the 359th District Court, and I ask for your vote and your support. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Jessica Steinman. I'm running for Congress to replace Morgan Luttrell, who's retiring and has endorsed me. I am the only one running that is Cruz endorsed and trusted and vetted by President Trump when he appointed me to the Department of Justice. I started my career, I've been working for over a decade fighting for our conservative values. So I started my career actually at Bracewell and Giuliani, which my opponent is now calling a liberal law firm. Aaron and I actually both started our careers at Bracewell and Mayor Rudy Giuliani's law firm. Yes, very, very liberal law firm. Of course it's not. And then I actually then worked for Senator Ted Cruz, again, who's endorsed me in this race. I then worked for President Trump. He appointed me to the Department of Justice, running our human trafficking efforts there. I came over and came to President Trump's think tank, and I've been leading our legal efforts there for President Trump on the outside the last 5 years. I have sued sanctuary cities. I've sued boys and girls sports. I mean, you name it, we've done it. Election integrity, we worked on for years. Something that Aaron said really caught on for me tonight is pick the person who's already doing the job. And that's who you can trust. And that's me in this race. I am the only one running that is already doing this work and can step in day one and continue to fight for your values. I would say it's unfortunate that people are going negative. You guys see that all the time against certain candidates that are in this room. People go negative when they don't have their own career to stand on. I can stand on my career. And I would say, again, look at all the candidates that are running in this race. I will tell you all, and please come ask me questions. If you have questions, ask me directly. I have been a Republican since I was 16 years old. I was a House congressional page for Republicans at 16. I have never supported Democrats, never. So again, please come ask me your questions. I'm happy to talk about it more. I would love your vote, and I hope to represent you all. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. This is Mark Gullaby. I am running for governor, and I am excited about running for governor at this particular time because there are so many issues. Just as you heard Aaron talk about time and time again, it's time for something to go through and get a major change. One thing that you're having right now is you are overtaxed. A governor going around bragging about a government surplus after surplus after surplus is basically telling you, I'm taking too much of your money, too much of your money, and too much of your money. And then to turn around and take that, after he insults you there, he says, and I'm going to take your money and I'm going to send it to subsidize Hollywood millionaires because $165 million net worth just doesn't buy what it used to. Those are things we have to be looking at. We have to be looking at how we deliver Texas public education. The current guy who's been running, the appointed, right, commissioner, has been running it for 10 years. 10 years, and where is our Texas public education, right? It's more expensive, right? But the math scores and the reading scores are down. That person should be an elected individual. That person should be accountable to the parents and the taxpayers. That person should be here in this room asking for your vote about how they're going to address the school districts, right? And then when you go through there, we talk about the Sharia law, and that is amazing. I have a whole website on it, okay? And one of the things I think we need to tell a lot of these people is number one, you've already told us that this is a better solution because you're here, right? Did you leave a bad place to come to a worse place? You did not. You came for a better place, number one. Number two, we are a foundational Christian nation. How do we know that? Well, because we're free, right? And what is free? The truth shall set you free. And who is the way, the truth, and the life, right? Jesus Christ. Mark Gullaby, good governance, not today. Please, appreciate your vote. Appreciate your attention.
Yeah, it's great seeing you all this weekend, all dressed up. And those of you who saw me finally saw my wife. So I do have a wife. Imagine somebody saving your life and the life of your loved ones, and then inviting you into their home to live. That's how I see America. I came here as a Vietnam War refugee, almost died coming here, was rescued by an American Navy, and I paid back this country. For me, it was promises made, promises kept. I signed up, enlisted, put on a uniform, and fought for us in 3 separate wars. I know what Aaron was talking about with Islamic terrorists coming to our nation. I fought them. I understand that Islam is not a religion. It is political ideology. I am the only candidate that has fought for this country, put my life on the line for this country, not once, twice, but 3 times. I'm the one that's bled for this country. And yes, experience matters. My experience isn't about rubbing elbows with political elites in D.C. or Austin. It was forged in fire on the battlefield. It was forged in the battle boardrooms of oil and gas, building programs, understanding how to run a P&L, how to balance a budget, how to build programs, create jobs for thousands of veterans, women, and children to get interested in STEM. Make no mistake, America's at war. We are at war. Who do you want to represent you? A war fighter? Or somebody who's been part of the establishment? My endorsements come from the regular people, from war fighters, from business owners. I made sure that I didn't have any endorsements from political candidates or career politicians, because when I get to D.C., I'm not going to represent them. I'm going to represent you, us, we the people. I'm Nick Tran. Check out my Facebook page. I've got videos there that have gone viral with over 1 million views talking about assimilation, which is what Aaron talked about. I came here, assimilated. I became nothing but an American. I don't have dual citizenship because the country that I came from died. It's a communist country now. I'm Nick Tran. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Martin Itwap, and I'm running for U.S. Congress, District 2. 20 years ago, I came to this country as a missionary. 7 years later, I became a U.S. citizen. 3 months after becoming a U.S. citizen, I got my Ugandan passport, mailed it to the Ugandan embassy. And I said, I renounce my Ugandan citizenship. And since then, since 2013, when I renounced my Ugandan citizenship, I've been an American through and through, fighting for our American system, our American values. I've been raising my kids in this community. I've been fighting for our community. Aaron and I have been, we've talked over the phone and text. We've never met in person. In 2024, during the elections, there was issues and ballots and all over the state. And thank you, baby, I appreciate you. And while all these issues were happening, I called the Texas GOP. I'm like, what's going on? They're like, oh, we cannot interfere. It's an election right now. We don't have an attorney. Guess who became the de facto attorney for the Texas GOP in 2024? Yours truly. That is how I got to talk to Aaron, because there was ballot issues for Senator Cruz in Houston, Texas, and nobody was taking care of it. So I called it. People say, hey, call Aaron. You guys need to figure out stuff. I called him, and we came up with some ideas on how to overcome that. And so I've been fighting for Texas. Just today, I was going back and forth with an attorney who was defending a school district where a teacher in class made some very inappropriate sexual language to a child, a 5th grade child. And the district is defending this teacher. I'm like, you better fire this teacher. and back and forth. They're like, okay, we've taken care of it. We've reported to the TEA. I'm like, you better be sure. Otherwise, I'm coming after you. That's what I've been doing for Texas. Why? Because I'm raising my kids in Texas. I'm fighting for America, fighting for my kids. And that's why I'm running for Congress. Because we need fighters in D.C. D.C. is broken, just like Austin is broken. We need people who are willing to put up, show up, and actually fight for our people. And that's what I'm running for, to fight for our kids. Thank you very much, martinetwork.com. We can do this together. Thank you. God bless you.
Hey, folks, good to see everybody tonight. Michael Gutzman, I currently serve as your major crimes chief at the Montgomery County District Attorney's Office. I'm board certified in criminal law, and I should be your next judge of the 359th District Court. I have the experience to lead. I am the only candidate in this race that has been 100% committed to criminal law throughout my entire career, and I am the only candidate in this race that has the consensus trust of law enforcement in Montgomery County, from the Houston Police Officers Union to the Coalition of Police and Sheriffs to the 28,000 members of CLEAT, and as of last week, the endorsement of the Montgomery County Law Enforcement Association and your longest serving District Attorney, Brett Ligon. I am the trusted candidate in this race. Was the energy in this room great tonight? Was the energy in this room great? Send that same energy to work for you here locally as your next judge of the 359th, Michael Gutzman. Thank you.
Hey, everybody. So it's been a minute. I just became a father. No, I'm not running for office, but I'm just here on behalf of Brett Ligon, your next Senate District 4 state senator, who was endorsed by Brandon Creighton, the former state senator of this district. So, yeah, if you have any questions about his campaign, I'll be right here, and I'll try to answer them the best way. Appreciate it.
Howdy, everyone. Good evening. My name is Braden, and I work for the Steve Tuth for Congress campaign. Running for the Congressional District 2 against Dan Crenshaw. We are, it's our pleasure and delighted to be endorsed by Montgomery County Tea Party. Anyway, I'm here on behalf of Representative Tuth. If you'd like to get the campaign's in full swing, so if you'd like to more information or if you'd like to get plugged in, I'll be here for you. Thanks.
All right, I am Gwen Withrow. I am your current party chairman for the Republican Party. I have to win this race. I need your help. I need your help at the polls. I need you block walking. I need anything I can get from you because we need to win this race. My opponent, as you well know, he doesn't even think he thinks the primaries have already been closed. He thinks we already have closed primaries. We don't want that guy as our chairman. So please get out, support me so we do not have him. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Marie Bullfinch for Precinct 25 Chair. It's just Precinct 25, but I will do my best, and I am working hard already. And I fully support Gwen, and I've been raised in Texas, born in Texas, and been in Montgomery County for 35 years. And I became a Republican at the age of 20, much to the chagrin of my parents, but I am a Republican for how many years? 52.
All right, last but not least, I hope, I am Mike Hawley, your district attorney. The message is simple. People can't be free until they first feel safe. And I will keep you safe, and the Montgomery County Tea Party will keep us free. Thank you all.
My name is Wendy Suyaki. I am Precinct Chair 66. I am up for re-election, and I am also president of the Montgomery County Freedom Caucus. Please find me on Facebook, find me on Twitter. We are setting up a sign-up genius to work the polls for all of the candidates who were endorsed by the Tea Party and some other groups that won't be mentioned right now. We'll talk about that later. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kim Weber. I'm Precinct Chair 97 in Magnolia, and I'm running for re-election. Guys, Montgomery County has a big rhino problem, and they are coming after all of the conservative precinct chairs. They're coming after Gwen, John, yeah, they're coming after all of us. As a matter of fact, Cecil Bell has endorsed my opponent because he is mad that I voted to censure him. He's mad at all of us. And I'm quite sure Will Metcalf is going to be doing the same thing. They're going to be, oh, he has? They're going to be funding our opponents. And we have to fight back. We need social media warriors backing all of us up. We need social media warriors defending Gwen and John and Kristen. So please help. Sign up at the polls, sign up to work, block walk. We need you guys. So thank you.
Hey guys, Lana Horde, current chair of Precinct 106. If you live in Grand Lake Estates or the south part of Wood Forest or in my precinct, I would love to have your vote. If you don't live in that area, I need your help. Stuffing bags, we probably have 1,500 bags to get out in our precinct alone. So we have a lot of literature to put out. We have a lot of places where you can go to work. I can drop things off and you can stuff it at home. Just contact me. Thank you guys for being here. Goodbye.
I'm Brian Scipione. I'm a physicist, not a politician. However, I'm still running for chairman of Precinct 11.
Okay, now the final exit here. When you leave, you have to leave out the doors down this way because we have all the literature for the candidates and we want you to take it with you. I'm just kidding. You don't have to do that, but we really appreciate you taking some of their information. And if you didn't get a voter guide, they're available for you as well. Thank you all for coming out tonight. Thank you for your patience. And we'll see you back on the first Monday of next month. God bless.